All right, so today's lesson is on matrices. As you are watching this video, I'd like you to have your notes in front of you, your blank notes to be filling out. And please make sure that when I tell you to pause the video, actually pause the video, give it a go, and then check your work, and then pause it again, and then identify questions that you might have, and please go see your teacher if you're confused about anything. All right, so the first thing that we're talking about on matrices, so it's a rectangular array of numbers enclosed by brackets. And we'll talk about a whole bunch of different ways that matrices can be used. But first, we just need to understand the basics. So matrices are described with a dimension, okay? And the dimensions are always the rows by the columns, okay? So in this case, since I have 2 rows, that means it's 2 by 4 because I have 4 columns. So we can just put that in our notes on the side. So it's going to be the row by the columns. Okay, so in this case, it's a 2 by 4. All right. For example, then on this first one that we have here, I can see that I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is a 4 row by 1, 2, so a 2 column. So go ahead and pause the video. I want you to try the next 2, and then you can check your work. All right, so hopefully your answers match these. All right, so now what we're going to look at is adding and subtracting matrices. So the only way that we can add and subtract matrices is if they have the same dimensions, okay? So in this case, this is 4 by 2, and this is also a 4 by 2. Therefore, I can add these together. So in order to add, I'm going to try to color code this. You're going to go with the corresponding location of each number. So this is my top left and also my top left. So then I know that in my resulting matrice, in my top left is going to be the addition of those 2 things. So this is going to be 1 plus -9, which is ultimately going to give me -8. Okay, and then if I go into my next location, so if I go to the second one down from the left, so the second one down from the left, I would have 2 plus 2, which would give me 4. And then I'm just going to keep going with that same pattern. So then if I went to the second column, my first row, second column, first row, I'd have -9 plus -3, I get -12. All right? So go ahead and pause the video. I want you to just try this first one, and then I'll fill out the answers. So pause the video right now. So go ahead and check your answer with mine. Again, I tried to make sure that it was in color code, so it's easy to follow. Make sure that you have kept track of everything and you haven't made any errors. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for you to make errors, so just be very careful, go slow, and make sure that you're corresponding with the correct row and column. So give the next 2 a go, pause the video, and I'll have the answers up in a second. All right, so here are the answers for the second and the third one. The third one, I just kind of threw that out there to see if anybody could figure this out. But ultimately, what you're doing in the third one is, again, it has to be the same dimensions, but you're corresponding with this, except you're going to subtract. So I would do 1 minus 10, and that's how I get that -9 that I have right here. Okay, and then same thing that I would do over here. So I'll just use different shapes, right? So then I would have 2 minus 21, which gave me that. So 2 minus 21. And then with this square, I would have 3 minus -3, which is how I got that 6 in the top right corner over here. Okay? All right, so now getting into multiplying matrices. So this gets a little bit more complicated. It's not as easy as adding and subtracting, unfortunately. But with multiplying, there's times that you can multiply them and there's times that you can't multiply them. Okay, so the way that you can multiply them is when the first matrice that you have, when that column number is the same or matches the second matrice's row number. I know that might be a lot of words, but what that basically means is if I have a, let's say I have a 2 by 3 and I have a 3 by 2, okay? So when the first matrices column, so that's this guy, matches the second row, so the second matrices row number. So when these two things match, I can, and I'm good. And I actually know that my resulting matrice will be the rows of my first column by my columns of the second matrice. So my resulting would be a 2 by 2. Okay? So I cannot multiply them together when I have, let's say I had like a 2 by 2 and a 3 by 2. Because these two numbers do not match, that means that I cannot multiply these matrices together. It's not possible. So looking at my first question, when it says to multiply, well, this one is a 2 by 2, and this is a 2 by 2. So I check the first column by my second row, and I see that these match, so I'm good to go. I can multiply these guys together. So when multiplying, it's going to get a little bit tricky, okay? And it's really going to be important to pay attention, and I like to use different colors to keep everything organized. All right, so to find out what I'm going to have in my top left space, because I know that my resulting is going to be a 2 by 2, right? And I know that because of my resulting from my first two matrices that I'm multiplying together. So to find out what's going to go in my top left, what I need to do is I need to multiply my first matrices row by my second matrices first column, okay? And this will give me that value. And what I need to do when I do that is I need to first do, so I'm going to multiply my 3 with my 2. So I multiply 3 times 2, and I add my 2 with that 1. So then I'm going to have that 2 times 1 here. So ultimately this is going to give me 6 plus 2, and that's going to equal 8. Okay. So to keep myself a little bit organized, I just made sure that I erased my markings that I had on my matrices. You can keep it, but I just wanted to keep myself a little bit organized, okay? All right, so to find out what's going to be in my bottom left, the way that I'm going to figure that out is, so I know it's going to be my second row and still my first column. So same thing, I'm going to take -1 and multiply it by 2. And I add that to 4 being multiplied by 1. So you'll see that this pattern is going to be, you'll pick up on it pretty easily. So -2 plus 4. So this is going to end up being a 2. I'm just going to talk through this to make sure that we're all on the same page. But again, I'm just going to erase these colors to keep it organized. All right. And then I'll do this in green. So I'm doing my top right, which means that's my first row and my second column. And I've got my 3 times -5 plus my 2 times 2. And that's going to give me -15 plus 4, which gives me -11. And then I want another color. Let's make it purple. And then erase this to keep my life organized. And again, so I'm going for my bottom right, which means that that's still my second row and my second column. So -1 and -5 times -5 plus my 4 times 2. So that's going to be 5 plus 8, which is going to be 13. So that would be my final answer, would be the 8, -11, 2, and 13. I know it seems like a lot of work, but I want you to go ahead and try this second one. So go ahead and pause the video and keep track of your work. All right, so hopefully looking at this, you've got the right answer. Again, it's a lot to keep track of, so just go slow. And just remember, if you're looking, for example, at this orange one, so this is my top right position in the matrice. So I know that I'm going to go with my top row and my right column. So my top right corresponds to my top right. Okay, so same thing with my blue. So this is bottom left, so bottom left. So these are more practice problems, but again, just double check that you can multiply these together. So this is a 2 by 2 by a 2 by 2. These two match, so your resulting will also be a 2 by 2. Okay, this one's a 2 by 2, and this is a 2 by 3. These two match, so we're good. So your resulting is a 2 by 3. And again, that's because that's the rows of your first one and the columns of your second one. So this will be what your final matrix will be. So it'll be a 2 by 3. So I'll have... So now you guys pause the video and try these two out. All right, so I hope it didn't make any mistakes, but I tried to color code this. So with a 2 by 3, and you're multiplying those two together, it's the same exact concept. If I want my top left, that means that I need to use my top row with my most left column of my second matrix, and that's how I get that red value, okay? And then for my blue value, so that's my top middle, again, top, and then middle. Top right, top, and then right. So since we're not in class, you can't come up with one and your neighbor try to do it, but maybe just come up with one on your own. Just make a fun matrix, maybe not a 2 by 2 since we've done a bunch of those, and then just try it out, and you can even check it on your TI Inspire. All right, so scalars are a little bit different, but they're actually, I think, a little bit easier than just multiplying matrices. But what a scalar does is if I know that if I have this matrix A and it equals to this, and if it asks me for 2A, so I would write that just like I would if I were substituting A for a matrix, okay? Just like I would for any other number or expression. Okay, so in order for me to deal with this scalar goes to every single piece of the matrix. It gets distributed, if you will. Once I distribute that, then that means that I've got a 6 in my top left, I've got a -2, 4, and 0 will be my resulting vector. Okay, go ahead and try it out if you had 1/2 of A and simplify that. All right, so that one's not as pretty because it's got a bunch of fractions, but matrix is going to have fractions. That's legal, totally legal. All right, so now if you want to give yourself a challenge, try this next one. So this is saying that B is this. I know that B is equal to this matrix and A is equal to this one. In this case, what I want you to do is do the scalar first and then multiply that new matrix by A. So go ahead, pause the video and give it a go. If you had trouble getting started and you just continue to press play, then go ahead and, so I just did this for you. I plugged in B in my matrix A. Now hopefully that should help. So again, just distribute the 3 and then multiply it. All right, and then there's my answer that I have right here, my 2 by 2 as my final matrix. So hopefully you got the right answer. If there's any questions that you have on anything that was discussed in this video, please ask your teacher. There's a worksheet that you can practice because the more you practice, the better you'll get at it. And we'll continue with more matrix stuff next class. Thank you.